much. I think we have some time for a couple of questions, very specific questions, please. And when I say specific, I mean short. I have one myself, indeed. All the work that's done in the Basque Country this way can be extrapolated to other border areas, can't it? Or, I mean, do you take data from border areas as well to validate the data you obtain, or what? I think that, generally speaking, for the north of Spain, it would be very similar. In the case of the rest of the Gulf of Biscay, particularly France, is slightly different because the coastline there is not so sandy, so it's got different problems in terms of adaptation to climate change. The landmass areas has a different way to adapt itself. But generally speaking, I think, yes, for everything that has to do with upwelling and things like that, everything can be nearly extrapolated to other parts around the Gulf of Biscay. From what you've shown, you are observing that the species or communities which exist at a specific level will migrate towards, well, northwards, and other species, which are now alien species, will arrive and replace them, yes? But I mean, are you interpreting that, or, I mean, that's usually seen as a negative thing, but it could be understood as an evolution, not as something negative, but as a way to, well, adapt ourselves to this new situation. The problem is not only that alien species today will come to us due to natural migration, but that invasive alien species can, under the present circumstances, find very good conditions to multiply themselves and remain here. And the problem with this invasive species is that they may cause socio-economical problems and an impact, like some macroalgae are, for example, causing with regard to some of our culture production. Any other question? There's one at the back of the
¿Estudiaste alguna situación, son hipótesis de trabajo, o sea, modelos que hiciste en que la nueva situación?
These are all work hypotheses, yes, models. Have you looked at any situation where the new situation in the middle term would be positive and not negative? And then in the second place, a second question. What you are saying about a reversion of the initial situation, taking into account that this change is going to take place, undoubtedly, how are you going to face it? Well, we haven't worked in, we've not seen any positive situation, basically, from the point of view of change of infrastructures and habitat loss. The problem we have, at least in our coastline, is that there are many infrastructures, a lot of human changes, and it is very difficult that natural habitats can be naturally adapted. With regard to your second question, I can't remember exactly what you asked. Yes, well, changes are going to take place, undoubtedly. So how are you going to propose that we revert to the initial situation? No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting that we adapt to the new situation. Reverting to the initial one is impossible. Well, we have examples of positive situations here. For example, the explosion of pioneer species which have been very successful, like Japanese clam, for example, which is an alien species, at least in the beginning, but it is being well adapted. It's highly resistant to salinity and temperature, and it seems to be positive. It involves a very important economic profit for shellfish gatherers, and as long as there's no competition and no exclusion from other species, it's seen as something positive. Yundaria, for example, this is a species we are working with as well, and which is an alien species, but it's working very well as well. So, I don't know, interferences, competitiveness that may exist regarding space or feed, well, I don't know of any case like that in the Ria de Arousa. Well, perhaps you can continue with this conversation after the session, because we are running slightly tight on our schedule. So we'll leave it here. Thank you very much, Ángel. Your speech has been very, very interesting indeed.